Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Skeindeer. I have a Ravelry shop with the Skeindeer Knits designs. I make knitting patterns that you can find on there. And hi and welcome to my first ever knitting podcast in my first ever home. That is like mine, where I live alone. And for those of you who are completely new here, this is where I sit and talk about knitting. It used to be once a week, then it was once a month, and then it was until I moved into my new place, which I have, and you may have seen or may not have seen the moving vlog that I previously uploaded. It was a wild ride getting there, getting here, unpacking, figuring out which shelf everything goes into, all that stuff. Furniture, so much furniture. I don't even have a lot of furniture, but my goodness, are they heavy? And I'm exhausted, but I'm finally here. And this is the first time I'm recording a new knitting podcast episode. And yeah, I'm kind of still getting a sense of what lighting I like, if this is where I'm going to be sitting now, because it's kind of easy. My computer's right here. There's light. I don't have as much natural light as I used to have, so we're just going to have to make do with what we got. But I kind of like this. It's fine. And this is also the first time I'm recording after getting my camera back from the repair shop, because I don't know if anyone remembers concrete stairs gate of 2021, I think summer 21, where I dropped my DSLR camera down some concrete stairs, just seeing my life flash before my eyes as it was bouncing down the steps after doing a photo shoot for the second summer collection that I did. So it's been a few years ago, and I always felt like the focus was kind of a little bit out, so I dropped this off the local camera repair shop where I used to live, only to have them charge a obscene amount that if you kind of double to triple the amount, I could have actually bought a new camera. But after paying that, it actually does seem to be focusing somewhat, maybe, I don't know. So let's get into the knitting. I don't really have much else to say admin wise. I'm going to get more into the personal life stuff at the end of the episode, the way we used to do. But I will say up front that I'm thinking a lot about how I want to do the podcast differently, and I'm a little bit scared about putting that out there and asking you guys like kind of how we can zhuzh it up a little bit, if you will, because I feel like it got a bit stale, but I don't think anyone else does. I think it's just from the recorder hostess point of view, where I just think I could just make it a little bit more snappy. I don't know, maybe it was fine, it's fine the way it is, and we just carry on. But I don't know, it might be cool to have like different kind of contents that I can film in here now that this is all my space and I do have a bit more say. And maybe I like doing other types of videos every now and then as well. You never know. So there's that. But yeah, knitting. I have one finished object that's maybe not the most exciting finished object in the world. And I actually don't remember which one it was, because I've been making these sparkly West Yorkshire Spinners self-striping socks. And I know there was one pair that I finished last time, and I know that I have finished one pair since last time. Which one of them they are, I don't know. Also, there's a lot of traffic and there's a new flat that maybe we didn't have in the last flat. We'll get to that in the end. The pros and cons of living here. It's literally what I wrote down. So this is one of the pairs. Maybe this was the last pair. I think this was the second one that I made. So this is the one that I don't think we've seen yet. Could do a little close-up if you like. It's very sparkly. It's very hard to get these cameras to pick up on the sparkle, so assume that it's twice as much as you can see. It's dense with the glitter. And here I've gone with my trusty old short heel flap, half short row heel turn, shallow gusset heel. That is my favorite. Swear by this one. Whereas the first pair that I did, pretty sure this is the first one, I've just done my short row heel. The way that I do this is, well, German short row turns, but I will leave the first and last stitch of my heel to the middle part of the short row heel, because that seems to be the best way to close any gaps. Comparison, if you will. I think they sit pretty much equally well on the foot anywhere. You could argue that these are the easiest ones to make. I do think these sit a little bit better on the foot, but I'm happy making either, and I tend to just go with what I feel like in the moment, so it's not really a very hard decision. Just kind of vibes, you know. So much of knitting is just decided by vibes, I think. We don't really think, we just do. So these will be added to my little sock collection. I say as if I have like one place I put all my socks. They're everywhere, who knows really, but they're going to the sock void. And that carries us swiftly into the works in progress section. Should I do sections? Should I just do like big title sections? Is that like a thing that we can do? Also, how dramatic are these sleeves? They're like, I feel like I'm some kind of like 1970s flower power witch or something. I don't know. Also, this jumper is like way too big and I'm like, oh, I'm like swimming in it. It's so good. Anyway, I have 2 works in progress to talk about, and that's probably like segues kind of nicely into some of the changes that I thought about making. Is, you know, we could keep having these kind of like once a month episodes that have a lot of knitting in them, or maybe more frequent episodes with less content, so that they're shorter episodes, yes, but more often, maybe, is a thought. It depends on like what I can keep up with as well, of course. Anyway, the piping hot sweater. I keep all my whips in this basket now. I have a lot of these baskets, and this is my whip basket, so I can just pull it out from here. Here we go. I have actually not worked on this jumper for a hot minute, because this was my stockinette piece of my knit that I had during the move. So I guess one thing I didn't really talk much about in the moving vlog, because I don't know, I just feel like a bit more on the private side of life, is that I had to move out of my previous accommodation that I've lived in since 2016 and since starting Skeindeer Knits, before I was ready to move, to be fair. And this was something my landlord kind of already tried to make me do back in, well, by the end of November, because my flatmate wanted to be out by then, and I guess she thought it would be easier if we both went at the same time. And I was like, I'm not ready. So my landlord let me stay on my share of the rent for December. And when this was starting to bleed into January was when it was like, right, so if I can't make full rent, which I never signed up to do, I always signed up with one more person at least, I'd have to move. So I got to stay 1 week into January before I realized this is just dragging on. And my landlords were eager to start renovating, and I didn't have any date yet as to when I could move. So the best compromise seemed to be that I could have my things stuffed into the living room. They could start renovating the other rooms. They were going to start right on the bathrooms on the day that I was leaving. And I got to see it all smashed up right before I left, and got to stay at a friend's sofa. Thank goodness for the knitting community, I keep saying that. So I was staying on the sofa until a bedroom got freed up, and yeah, stayed there for like almost 2 weeks. Thank goodness for that. I cannot express my gratitude enough. And while I was there, you know, I just kind of had to have a project with me that was easy enough to do. I had balled up the yarn already, and this is it. So this is how far I got. I have got very far on the body. I have actually no idea I got this far, but then again, the armholes are quite deep, so most of this is armhole, and then the body is like all the way down here now. And that's when I ran out of yarn, and I had to decide what to do for the sleeves, because as I discussed last time, I think they are a little bit on the short side for me, and I think that's fine. I'm not gonna have to rip out all the way to the underarm and do a different decrease rate. I can simply keep on decreasing, because we still have a lot of stitches here that I can still work with and keep on the decrease rate that I had. It's really not an issue. All I have to do is rip up the cuff, which was generally quite quick to make. I don't usually love rib, but this was pretty straightforward, and just keep decreasing a little bit more and do the cuff again. Easy. I'm not going to do some kind of weird cutting off the cuff and stitching on, because I am going to keep decreasing, so that stitch count's not going to make any sense. And it's all good, it's all good. But yeah, I really enjoyed this pattern, even though I am like halfway following it, halfway not, because it's supposed to have these I-cord pipes running down the front center, the back center, and along the shoulder. There's like a saddle shoulder, and down the sleeves to the cuffs. And I just didn't do that, because even though I had the yarn right in front of me, caked up and ready to go, I just wasn't feeling like doing Natasha. Me and Natasha, we don't really get on. Like, it's just one of those things. I could do it, but I didn't want to. There's nothing wrong with the pattern. There's maybe something wrong with me, but you know, I just chose not to in the end. The color would have been this like really lovely blue, which would have been really nice, but I didn't, because again, the situation I was in, I think warranted something incredibly easy and straightforward, even though I think the I-cords are pretty close to straightforward as well. I just, you know, once I'd got into rhythm of it, it would have been fine. It was a choice. You know, so it is what it is. But yeah, it's in a very, very dark brown, a natural sheep color. I believe this is, you know, straight up black Shetland, which is a shade of brown. And it's lovely. And every time I look at this, you know, it looks so woolly. You feel a bit of lanolin in it, and I'm just like, oh, it's gonna be a scratchy one. I'm sure I want this to be a jumper, not a cardigan. And I'm like feeling it though, and it is so soft. And I remember why I bought this yarn. This is from Lammermuir, and yeah, I was completely drawn in by the softness of the skeins. If it's already soft in the skein, like imagine what it's going to be like after just a bit of wearing and washing and everything. Like this stuff softens up already. So if it starts out soft, we're in a good place, right? So yeah, but yeah, shout out to Lily Kate of Lily Kate Makes, who has designed this pattern. I'm really enjoying it. I have knit her stuff before. I made the Lawrence sweater, which is kind of like a puff sleeve, sort of vintage fit, very cute. I really like her patterns, and she's a good egg. So yeah, shout out. She has a podcast too. So that's that. Just straightforward stockinette now, I think, after I've done the very, you know, impressive and engaging construction. It's kind of a straightforward jumper, simply because of all the things I've omitted, and I'm happy with that. So yeah, I kind of probably should just try to dig up the cakes of yarn that I wound up before moving, and keep on doing it. However, I didn't do that. Instead, I cast on a new project. And this came as a bit of a surprise to me, but I don't know, maybe it's not a surprise to you, because I had someone ask me, so what's your new move-in cast on? Do you have that's like a thing, like you moved in, what's your first cast on when you move in? And I hadn't really thought about that. I just done it. Because I was watching the Fat Squirrel Speaks podcast, where Amy Beth was wearing this beautiful blue yoke, colorwork yoke. And I just wanted exactly that. I just wanted exactly that. Like, I just wanted a blue one. But I didn't have blue yarn that was like suitable in terms of the meters and the weight. But I had purple yarn, the kind of purple that I like. That's like at the end of my burgundy rainbow, where you start to find some warm purples. And this pattern is the Azor yoke, which has been around for a couple of years now, I think, by Orlane Sucche. I maybe didn't pronounce that right. Me and French just never got on. It's the lowest grade I ever got in school. Pretty much the only time I basically failed. So we've tried, but yeah. Orlane has made the Azor yoke, and it's a really lovely pattern. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It was designed for La Bien-Aimée Mondim yarn, which I had a sweater quantity of, that I sold in my D-stash a year ago, and now it's even using the exact same color that I bought. I could have just used that yarn, it would have been perfect, and here we are. Choices were made, and I stand by them, even though I'm sure I went to a good home. But I had all this suitable yarn, which is Pickles Pure Wool. And this is like some deep stash stuff, because I bought this early Skeindeer days, I think we're back in, must be 2017 at this point, where I bought the biggest sweater quantity you can think of in this yarn, because I was going to make there's this Dogny dress, which is basically a very straightforward yoke dress, but I wanted to make the pullover version, but I didn't know how much yarn that was, because you just stop knitting before it becomes a dress. So I was like, okay, maybe just buy the quantities for the dress, maybe a bit less. Also, that was supposed to hold the yarn double. So as you can imagine, I ended up buying a lot of yarn. At the end of the day, I ended up knitting some of this into my no frills, holding some silk mohair together with it. You wouldn't have known, because I chose a very thick silk mohair, not the usual type. And so it's kind of drowning out this color, and it just looks full on like fluffy burgundy, which I mean, I'm not against. But it doesn't feel like I've knitted with this yarn yet, even though I have. So let me tell you a little bit about this yarn. So Pickles is a yarn shop in Oslo that have their own yarn that you get in that shop, nowhere else, to my knowledge. This is their 100% wool, pure new wool, that's basically code for non-superwash. It has 380 meters or 415 yards on a 100-gram ball. and it's up to maybe about like 23 stitch gauge. I would maybe do it a bit tighter if you want a dense fabric, but if you want loose fabric, I mean, yeah, that's, I don't know. I always felt like this required to be knit on slightly smaller needles than I normally do with like feenul and stuff, but I think many other people would maybe argue that this is interchangeable with feenul as a worsted spun alternative to yarns like feenul, which is woolen spun. So yeah, arguably a bit more gentler to the skin. I don't know, to me it feels kind of the same, and I really like it. It's a good yarn. I have quite a bit of it. I've always wanted to buy more of it, but I could never really justify it because I gotta use up what I have, right? So this is finally being used. And without further ado, I have done the yoke already. Isn't this pretty? This is so pretty. Like, I was a little bit like, oh, wish I had blue though. Really wish I had blue. I want to make the exact that one, you know, and then when I knit this, I'm like, oh, hello. This jumper's flirting with me. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, this is my colors. I'd almost forgotten, like, wasn't this my color scheme when I started Skeindeer Knits? Or we're not just going full circle here. I feel like everything I knitted back then was roughly this color, give or take. And I was like, it's burgundy. I'm like, is it though, or is it purple? Maybe a bit purple, I don't know. I think when you get into one color and you have like your favorite color in knitting, you start to operate with a very broad definition of that color. So if your color is pink, it's suddenly like anything from purple to like even like sort of red orange territories. Like it becomes a rainbow. So I have my burgundy rainbow, which include purple and red and burgundies and some pinks, and yeah. So this is it. I have knitted up one of these bowls and a leftover one I had from the last jumper many years ago. That was like 30 grams, so 130 grams of the pebble got this far. And I'm ready to do the sleeves now. I like to do that. I do the jumper as far as I get with the yarn I'm working on for the yoke, and then some, and then I just feel like having a break and doing the sleeve. And that helps me with how much yarn I have left, though that shouldn't be a worry here. I will have a lot of yarn left over, but I have done some modifications, not a lot of modifications. I want to preface this by saying, which I say pretty much every time, I never ever think modifications is a slight on the designer's decisions. I always encourage modifications in my patterns if you ever knit them. I think that's part of knitting. You adapt to yourself, both what you prefer to knit, but also how you wear them and the fit of your body, etc, etc. This is always a good thing. So when I talk about modifications, don't see that as like a drawback for the pattern or anything. It's not. I agree with a lot of the decisions made in this pattern, just to say that, but sometimes, you know, my designer brain kicks in. I'm like, why is it done this way? Why don't I do it this way? One example of not that was actually the start of this pattern, which has you cast on right after the rib and knit down, and then later you pick up the rib and bind off. That makes perfect sense. That's actually a really good decision that I never do, because what that does is it gives your yoke two kind of seams to hold the entire garment with, because it doesn't have shoulder seams or anything, right? So not only is it being held by the cast on, it's also being held by the bind off that you do later. So this is a great idea that makes sense. I just didn't want to do it because I have just a lot nicer cast on than I have a nice bind off. I enjoy it a lot more in rib. I do appreciate that it probably will widen out and have a less good fit than it would have if I would just follow the pattern. But I just wanted to cast on, and I just, you know, choices were made, okay? So it makes sense how it's done in the pattern, but I also think it makes sense the way I did it, as long as I made sure that my cast on was like going to be wide enough to get my giant head in, which I actually haven't tried, and it's looking a little bit questionable, but it should be okay. My head is very big. But I made sure I cast on a fairly small needle so that it will only get so much wider. Should we try this? Can my hairdo withstand it? Probably. It's not even a hairdo, it's just getting it out of the way kind of do. Oh, thank goodness. It would have been very awkward if I'm like, oh yes, I made sure to make it tight, and then I can't get it on. Joke's on me. Which is, of course, another advantage with the way that the pattern is written, is that you can actually fix the bind off if it's too snug and have a lot more control over it after you've finished the whole thing. Lots of good reasons. And I do a lot of picked up necklines that you bind off in my own pattern, so it's not like I'm a stranger to it. I just felt like doing it this way. And what the pattern then has you do when you pick up for the rib later is you don't pick up the exact 1-to-1 stitch rate that you cast on. So it kind of pulls in a little bit. I would just rather increase evenly to the stitch count that I needed, which actually allowed me to cast on slightly fewer stitches, which just made the neckline the size that I like. Though I did go with slightly wider neck than I normally do, and I think that's probably something I should have done a long time ago anyway. Yeah, so I just increased evenly instead of having that pick up differently than you cast on kind of thing, because I couldn't do that obviously. Then I did the short rows as prescribed. I did the color work as prescribed. I have gone up a needle size for the color work than a stockinette, which I always do because otherwise I'm not going to get the same gauge for the two. So that's hardly a modification. That's just you always should choose needle size that give you gauge. Do not ever, this is my advice, I will die on this hill, do not ever just read the needle size in the pattern and pick that one. I don't think needle sizes should be written in patterns, actually. Hot take here. I get that it's a good starting point for trying out what gauge, what needle you need for the gauge, but like generally it's not something we should look at. If you see a pattern you want to knit, you look straight at the gauge prescribed and go, oh, what needle do I need for that gauge? And just go from there. We shouldn't look at the needle that designer used because we're going to be different than them in the vast majority of cases. Where I use a 3.5, you may need to use a 3 or a 3.75, like you never know. So it's just going to be that different. That being said, I was pretty close this time. So yeah. I have now put everything on needles. So the body is on needles, sleeves are on needles, and that leads me to my last modification because I kind of wanted to do a size up, but it would have made the yoke take longer, it would have been bigger. I don't really need that. I just wanted more ease for the body. So I cast on 6 extra stitches under each arm. That makes the size somewhere in between the size that I cast on for and the next size up. And sitting right in between there, I think is kind of where I want to be. I think the other size would have been too big. The size I cast on would have been fine, but an extra 12 stitches is just kind of like... It's not even 2 inches or 5 centimeter extra. It's less than that. It's just a little bit extra. A little bit, you know, I just like that. So this is just clearly this is like the mood that I'm in. So I do that with my knitting as well. I could have also done like some subtle A-line shaping, which I've also been getting into lately, but nah, I think this will be fine. It's such a thin fabric already that I don't, you know, I see no need for that. But that doesn't mean I need to change the decrease rate for the sleeves because now we have 6 more stitches per sleeve, and that may seem excessive, but actually this is partially also why I made this decision, is that the sleeves by design are a little bit snugger than the positives of the body. I mean, this has been a trend in knitting for years now. I feel that we have sort of fitted sleeves and loose bodies, and I think it's very nice, it's very elegant, I like it, but knowing myself, I think I would want those extra 6 stitches per sleeve. So it's not a lot, but yeah, it adds less than an inch for each. So I'm just gonna have to recalculate the decrease rate, and chances are I would have done that anyway. I feel like that's like the one modification almost every knitter who knits top-down garments is very confident in doing. I'm very surprised actually. People who are usually quite scared of modifications, they will still do this very intuitively to fit their own arms, and I think also row gauge, even though they may not be thinking that. I think that's like where they're going with it, and putting stitch markers all the way to match up the second sleeve, stuff like that. I will probably do a bit maths because that's what I do, but basically amount to the same thing. And it also allows me to knit a bit straight first before I start decreasing, which, to be fair, I haven't read the pattern, it may already tell me to do that, but it's something I tend to squeeze in when I knit anyone's patterns anyway. So that's my notes, that's what I've done, that's everything I remembered. Isn't it amazing how I remember these things when I record shortly after having knit something rather than waiting weeks or possibly months? Amazing. It's almost like I should do this all along. I look so flower power today, this is ridiculous. Like, it makes me seem like 10 times happier than I am. But I'm pretty happy living here. It's good. More on that to come. Yeah, I don't think I have much else to say about this other than big shout out to Orlane suit and her pattern Azor. I'm enjoying it. I was very surprised to be casting this on. It wasn't on my queue, it wasn't on my radar, it was just, I just saw it and I was like, yeah, I want it. Queue be damned. And managed to find yarn in my stash, which makes me always very happy to be able to do, because what's better than that, you know? I am kind of both making my stash larger and smaller at the same time. I'll explain what I mean by that. So after moving, I decided if I can, I will get a bigger shelf for my yarn. So what you see in the background here is actually the old Kallax shelf that I had in my previous place, which wasn't even my shelf, and I didn't think I'd get to bring it with me. I thought I'd have to buy more shelves because these are like IKEA Billy shelves and these are IKEA Kallax shelves. And I just thought I'd have to buy 2 more Billy shelves to put back there. But then my landlady was like, do you want it? It doesn't really fit in this room. Which is fair because I did the wrong measurements many years ago when we bought this, and I think they've forgotten. Otherwise it could have been a very elaborate ploy to make sure I got to keep it. But yeah, I said sure. I had no idea where it would go. I didn't really think that far. I was like, I'll take it. And it did fit back there, which it should have, so that was wonderful. It was a victorious moment when the movers came in here. They put up the Billy shelves and I said, oh, I want that other shelf to go there, and they were like, it's not gonna go there, and they started looking at putting it that way instead of that way, and like I was like, it will fit. I have measured. It will, and then it fit, and I felt victorious. Sometimes I measure right. Didn't do it the first time around, but you know, I got it in the end. So why am I talking about the shelf again? Right. I didn't think I was gonna bring the shelf with me, and I knew I wanted a shelf just like that because I already have the inserts. That's how I organized my stash, and I measured the wall on the other side, which is my bedroom. And I found that I could fit the largest Kallax. So that's a 4x4 Kallax, but I could actually fit a 5x5. Granted, I can't open the door properly by like half an inch. Sacrifices were made, what can I say? But I now have a 5x5 Kallax with space, you know, not just in every cubicle, but also above it. And I put my, actually I want to talk a little bit about these as well. I bought more of Moody's linen cotton zip bags. They've changed the names of these bags over the years. They used to be called linen cotton or cotton linen. I think now they're called polyester linen or something, but they are exactly the same as they were before. I don't see any difference. They're still plastic lined, kind of ecru ivory colored bins that close with a zip. They come in different shapes, but they're all shapes that fit into Kallax. I think they're like 35 by 35. And they're wonderful. They're almost moth proof. There is a slight opening where the zip is, so I still plastic wrap my yarn, but they're very aesthetic, they're very pretty, they hold a lot of yarn, and I kind of mix and match those with the dröna bins that IKEA has, and it has let my stash breathe a bit more. What I mean by that is like they were very tightly stuffed in the dröna bins that I have had for years. And so now I can sort out my yarn a little bit better with, you know, this yarn goes into the worsted bin, this goes into the DK bin, this goes into spot bin, and like if it doesn't quite fit, I can have 2 worsted bins and that's fine, instead of trying to like stuff it, but then, oh, it doesn't fit, okay, let's just put this DK yarn into the worsted bin or vice versa because it just has to fit somewhere. I don't really have to do that anymore. So that's what I mean by making my stash larger. Yes, it's taking up more space, more bins, but it's not stuffed. It's actually where it's supposed to be, and it's easier to locate, hopefully. Still haven't tried that yet, but so far so good. I did try actually this morning and I did find it right away, so it's hopefully working out. But ultimately the content of the stash I am continuously working on being less. It doesn't mean that this, you know, shelf galore system is going to waste just because I'm going to have less yarn. There will just be more space and more sensible way of organizing it, and I can use the bottom bins for other things if they get empty. Yeah, that's what I'm working on there. Very happy with the stash organization 2.0 in this place. It's just, I'm vibing with it and I'm feeling very encouraged to knit from it. So I was very pleased when I could pick some pickles from the stash. I did a bit of a stash dive today as well, actually. This is how my brain works. It may not make any sense. So a lovely friend of mine is pregnant, happily told me what she was expecting, and I was like, oh, that means I can knit this. Great. And I started thinking like kind of what I could knit, maybe even design. And then like my brain just tumbles and suddenly I'm thinking about what I want to knit for my nephew because he has outgrown the adorable jumper, the Christmas jumper that I knit him, you know, what, 2 years ago or something. And I thought, could just make another size up. I love knitting the festive yoke. I don't know if I can say that's my own pattern. I just really enjoy it. I've knitted it, what, 4 times now? because I did the all over pullover, I did the all over yoke, I've done the yoke only for kids, but I thought I would do the all over pullover for kids now. So I did a bit of a stash dive. And I think I can use this yarn. I wanted to do yoke only initially, but I don't think I will have enough main color for that. So this is Järbu yarn that I bought a million years ago, feels like. And Järbu is really nice. Like, it feels very similar to Hillesvåg Ask. They feel very soft. They're really, really lovely. So this is Järbu, this is their logo. This is a Swedish company. I really like them. I have knitted their yarns before, and I already kicked up the main color years ago. I don't know what I was going to knit with it, probably for my nephew, but I never used it, so that's already ready. And this will be kicked up in a minute on my brand new yarn winder that I haven't tried yet. So as the time of recording, I'm gonna sound very confident that it's great. I will never have to wind by hand again because it's electric. Oh yeah, and I really love it. I'm just looking at it now and it's like, it's even burgundy. They make them in only burgundy, so I'm like, oh, it's like they thought about me. This company is called Hague, and silly me thought they were based in Hague. They're actually UK based, but I did buy it secondhand, which meant that I got it a bit cheaper. It was a bit of an impulse move-in present buy thing, but also I got a lot extra spools with it. But the downside is it does look like it's an older model, so the way that the yarn guides are arranged on it means that the Swift can only be on the floor when I'm winding, which is something to get used to, I guess, but also maybe it's a good thing because it gets awfully dusty on my desk every time I wind yarn, and it's a little bit hard to get through all the around the monitors and everything, so it might be actually a blessing that it goes straight on the floor at the end of the day. We'll see. I feel like it's just going to be hard to handle because just looking at right now, some of the downsides is that it does not let you adjust speed. So I worry a bit that if something gets caught, which it does do on my Swift, I might be in trouble. The other thing is you can't manually wind. So if I need to manually wind every now and then, maybe to solve a tangle or something, it doesn't do that either. So I'm definitely not going to get rid of my old trusty old royal winder. It's attached to the other table now. I have like a kind of L-shaped thing going on here. Which maybe looks a bit awkward, but it works really well for my work vibes, you know, vibes, is that what I'm saying? We work from vibes. So that's kind of what I'm foreseeing as an issue now. So I've actually contacted the manufacturer and asked if I can buy some parts that let me wind from the table maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it works. I'm going to wind and put in a clip on that here. So this clip did in total take 5 minutes. So 5 minutes to wind this skein. What I learned is that I definitely have to tie a knot to get this yarn stay on. And then it will start winding, but the tension dial was way too tight, even for this sort of sport fingering weight yarn, as we will see in just a moment here. Wait for it. There we go. And this was where I was kind of scratching my head, like, why is this not working? Why is this stuff pulling the yarn? It's nice to experience that it doesn't really do anything bad when it can't pull from the Swift. I just had to loosen the tension dial a lot. And once I loosened it, almost as much as I could have, so I don't even know if this dial is much use unless you're winding from a cone. But that worked all the way until the very end, and I'm really pleased with this electric winder. But that's that. So I think my next cast on might be a Christmas jumper in February, as you do. And then I might think about some baby knits for my friend's baby. That's, you know, going to be born way later this year. I have lots of time, so it may not be the first thing that I do. But I don't know, the whole baby knits thing is kind of silly because it's definitely just something that I do because it's like fun and quick and I can make little tiny garments. And, you know, but the pattern side of it is like definitely not the highest demand of what I do. Seems like my adult garments are what sells, and then the baby stuff is just like for my knitting pleasure, and that's fine. I'm still sitting on that child onesie that I still haven't published. I was looking at the photos today, it's like it's ready to publish. Like, why do I have such a hard time with it? I have a few of those that were tech edited like a year ago. Sitting and recording this video right now, I still haven't done it. So yeah, let's get to life stuff. This is the end of the knitting, in case you didn't pick up on that. I'm going to talk about life, the move, everything. Things that I maybe left out of the moving vlog, and extras, and, you know, experiences that I've had now that I've lived here for 3 weeks tomorrow. I moved in on Saturday, tomorrow Saturday. I wrote a pros and cons list. That's not complete by no means, but just kind of like, how do I feel about living here? Pros, definitely love it, living alone. I got kind of used to it in December because I lived without a flatmate during that time, but it was still like under the kind of, you know, threat of when will I be kicked out or expected to pay double or whatever, because landlord's gonna landlord even if they think they're being nice. But it just, that stress of it, not living under that anymore, is pretty sweet. We have this fire door system here, which isn't very surprising for anyone living, you know, anywhere. But it has this like suction sound when anyone comes through the fire door on the stairwell to the flat opposite mine. That kind of pulls my door, so it sounds like someone's coming in, and I'm just like, oh. So I'm like kind of slowly getting used to the fact that nobody is gonna just come and lock themselves in here the way it's been in the Flatshire. I am finally not living that way anymore. There's nobody who's gonna just unannounced come and lock themselves in here. That's such a treat, and I'm just like learning to live with that fire door suction sound without expecting someone to come in, and it's like a annoying but nice reframing of that. But yeah, enjoying living alone. I also enjoy the smaller space. That may be surprising to people. Maybe people have seen, you know, the moving vlog and get a sense of the size of this space. It's about 40 something square meters. And some people would maybe be unhappy with that. And I certainly wanted a spare bedroom just because I love having guests, but I adore having everything just together the way it is now. Like just now I was going through my stash. It's just around the corner, and then I come back here. Want to make a coffee? I got a coffee machine yesterday. It's one of those machines like the Philips and So that just lets you make filter coffee, but like just one cup, which, hey, I'm one person, so. And this country is notorious for the espressos, and I'm just like, ugh. So I'm very happy with that, and now I can just go and do all of that, just like, oh, coffee stash here. It's all in one very walkable space that doesn't make me like forget what am I doing in this room again when I walk into it, which does happen, especially if I live on multiple levels. I very quickly forget anything about the level that I'm not on when I'm not on it. So many a times I have washed my bed sheets in the morning, and when I come into the bedroom at night there are no sheets on, and I'm like, but I want to sleep. How did I forget this? Because I've not been upstairs all day. So I really enjoy living in a smaller space so much. Like, I'm not sad about that this being small at all. It's so nice. Just 10 out of 10. Tiny living, thumbs up. Couldn't be happier with that. So what am I not happy about? Ooh, the walls are so thin. Now, I have had issues with flatmates not respecting the thin walls within the flat many times. This has been an issue when I lived in student halls. I was kind of frightened by a flatmate in the place I lived after that, who was just suddenly very aggro at probably a video game or something, or I don't know, feminists on the internet. He was that kind of type. That was quite like sudden and jarring and scary, but like I would never hear anything from the neighbors. And even in the previous place that I lived, you guys remember the guy downstairs? He was not quiet. He brought people home at night. The floor between that room and mine, which was later the living room, I heard everything. So that's been an issue, sure, but I've never had issues with hearing the neighbors. There's been thick concrete walls between the flats. And this building is very similar to the previous building I lived in. It's like a maisonette that holds a couple of apartments. But it's also attached to a row of houses. That way, you can still call them apartments, two-story apartments. Yeah, floors, ceiling, if you will, walls are thin here. I don't know what they were thinking when they built this, which again, similar type building as last time, similar era, just across the river, council. So you would have thought it was a similar construction, and that's also the reason I went for a purpose-built apartment rather than the many converted Victorian houses on the market that I looked at, because I imagined just how much I was going to hear my upstairs, downstairs, next door neighbors, and just no. But then here, it's kind of the same, unfortunately, and I don't think it's an issue. Like, nobody can be blamed for that. Like, if I hear my neighbors cough, I hear the dog do a little yap now and then, like, okay, you know, I'm not mad about that. But why on earth do they go and acquire a giant subwoofer, sound system, whatever they have, that's like pounding through the wall, especially between their living room and my bedroom. I don't know what it is with people who would like go to the length of purchasing something like that when you know that that's your living situation. I love blasting loud metal music. Like, that's like my vibe. I have never done that since moving to apartments, ever. It just wouldn't occur to me, except for when I was trying to smoke out my flatmate, in which case I also warned my next door neighbours that that's what I was doing and let them contact me if they were bothered, and you know. So that's been something I'm not enjoying, and it's been upsetting that that's like been an issue so early on, because I just really wanted to enjoy it. But the day that I moved in and I sat down with all my IKEA boxes and started assembling, and I started hearing them just like pounding this music, and it's been that song every day. It's the same song. I don't know, have any of you guys seen Mars Attacks? Well, there is spoiler if you haven't, there is a song that the grandma really loves to listen to, just loves it, but it turns out the song is so awful that that is what kills all the aliens that are attacking Earth. It makes their heads just explode. And that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. It's like that. I hope I'm painting a picture, and I hope it's funny to you guys as well, because that's the only way you can kind of frame these things. But it is upsetting. I really, really, really want to get to know them before I'm like knocking on the door and be like, guys, we can't do it this way. That this is not on. Like, just listen to music if you want, but the bass has got to go, or headphones. Seriously, like I want to be on good terms with my neighbors, so that's I come in peace. I just woke up from them this morning, but I really wanted to sleep in, and I'm sitting quite far from the camera today, so you don't see the wrinkly bags under here, because I needed to sleep. So yesterday was a very busy day in the cold rain of London. That's like the one proper problem that I'm having, which can be solved. I didn't want to put that in the moving vlog because I'm like so happy here. I'm so pleased. Other downsides is like I find it a bit humid, which maybe just isn't surprising because it's been rainy weather and I'm on the ground floor. I will say the humidity indoors is a lot less affected by the outdoors than the previous place. Previous place, it was like it would shoot up inside if it was rainy outside. Windows closed, didn't matter. It got very easily affected. Here it's kind of like a steady 60 something percent, which isn't terrible. I would just love it to go down like 10%. Yeah, it's 69 right now %. Sometimes it's in the 70s, especially when I'm drying clothes. Don't love that, but I feel like I could fix it if I get a new extractor fan in the bathroom, because that fan is doing nothing except creating a little bit of noise. Like, it's completely ineffective, but I have no clue how to do that. And so I went to the local B&Q and I thought I'd buy a new extractor fan as a start. I tried to talk to the person working there, and she was like, I really don't know, I'm just kind of replacing someone today. Do you want me to get someone who might know? And I was like, yes please. And she did get this guy who was probably like a senior, I don't know, maybe manager or something. I don't know. He was wearing something different. And after like talking down to me a little bit, he realized kind of my situation, that I don't have family here that can help. I don't know my neighbors here. I don't know who is the guy that you get for these things. So he set me up. Gave me the details for a local pub where apparently there's some Irishman working, and I got his name, and I was going to say that Charlie sent me, and he will know the plumbers and electricians in the area and set me up. So I'm like, awesome. So I have to go to the pub now, which I should do sooner than later, because I woke up yesterday morning to the sight that my curtain rods have fallen off on this side. So they were lopsided already, and now they're actually come off and hanging by a thread of plaster wall. So I was like kind of always going to remove them, because I bought some new black IKEA fixtures, so I wanted to put them further up and further out. Now I have to, because it's not attached anymore. It's just kind of like, I don't want to touch it even. It's not good. But I don't know how to do this. I have to learn all these things now. And I am a former baby, so it's very hard for me, okay? So that's like a transition that people go through, right? Like, you were used to your landlord doing these things, and now you have to do it yourself. That's one thing. I really want to sort out the humidity in the bathroom. I think once I do that, everything else will be fine. I don't even know if the extractor fan in the kitchen does anything other than make a lot of noise. So usually I have to keep the kitchen door slightly open. And that leads me to another issue that I'm having. Right now it's fine. I can keep doors and windows closed, and I'm not that bothered by, you know, the loud trains that go by, which I always knew would be the case. The area being like a little bit dodgy, a little, you know. It has a reputation. But the other day, as you do in the city, I saw a chunky old rat outside, which, you know, outside is fine, just not inside. But then I'm like, well, I don't want to have the doors wide open then. And so how am I going to cope with the heat in the summer if I can't do that? Which I worried about before buying this place. It's not like that's something that just occurred to me. But I'm now kind of confronted with that. And like, what do I do then? The only windows I can open is the small tiny window next to the door and the bedroom window. Everything else is doors. And keeping them wide open, I think, in terms of the pests, is maybe not the best idea. And probably why I just need to get a dog ASAP, because I want a miniature schnauzer. And they were bred for rat hunting, so like that's a win. Very gross win, but a win. I do love rats though. I used to have pet rats. These are not pet rats. But it's dawning on me that what this place needs, which is very unusual in the UK, is an air conditioning unit, like proper one, not like the awful one that I have that just makes more noise than it actually does anything to the temperature. So that I don't need to keep the windows open and hear the train noise, so that I don't need to risk bringing in vermin, so that I can actually get the temperature lower than, you know, what opening the windows and doors does. Sometimes it does nothing. Sometimes it makes it hotter. It's hard to think about that in February, but I know what summers are like in the city. So that's something I'm contemplating, and it's so expensive it makes me weep. Sorry, I just had to get the mail. But yeah, feeling like that's gonna be a big expense that I can't afford, but I need, and it's just, Which leads me to another thing I wanted to comment on, because I kind of watched my own moving vlog back to back, and I was talking about all the things that I bought in terms of furniture, the fridge, things like that. And I want to make it absolutely clear. Nobody has commented on this, but I'm overthinking, and we all know how my brain works. So I didn't spend that from like people helping me out with the move. Like when I talked about in the last episode how, you know, you can donate money through my Ravelry shop, a Ko-fi link, and my PayPal link. That's not, okay, I'm not like, oh, let's just buy all these fancy things now. Like, no. And maybe you guys would have been fine with that, but like, these were already planned purchases. I just feel like I had to say that. I bought things for the Black Friday sale and for the New Year's sale, and I just kept pushing the delivery date until I can move in. So that's most of these things. Fridge came in a bit later, but I still budgeted for that. So what the money's gone to was the moving costs, because they ended up being like, I don't know, 3 to 4 times more than they were estimated. And when I moved in here, it also became very clear that the boiler system, the heating, water system, everything is so antiquated that it's got to go, and that's just where most of my money is going right now. It's getting done next week, and it is so expensive. I've already paid the deposit, so it's gonna happen. Like, I can't afford it, but it's gonna sting. And the decision, again, I didn't put this in the moving vlog because I kind of want it to be just the happy stuff, but the cost is justifiable. It just sucks. And this is, I know this is home ownership now. Like I've you know, the boiler that's here is so old that the manufacturer doesn't even exist anymore. I don't even know how that would be serviced. It does work, but it's like probably this close to going to an antique shop at this point. Like, the heating system is a little bit on and off. Like, I'll switch it on when I need it, off when I don't need it. It sucks the times I forget it and leave the house, which most of the time I remember. But like, it's what I want is just a thing where I put the setting of what temperature I want at different times, and it will adjust. And if I need to crank it up every now and then or switch it off every now and then, I can do that. But generally, I just want something that adapts to the temperature. Side point, this place is like really well insulated. I thought it was going to be the same as the last place, but this place is holding on to heat so well. Like, I switched it all off during the night and I wake up to like 18 degrees. The lowest it's been has been 17 degrees. You guys remember how cold it got in the last place? Like, it was like down to 13 at best. So I'm very pleased with that, but that's not credit to the boiler. The boiler is not energy efficient at all. It's like one of the lowest ratings it could have. Not only that, but there's like hardly any water pressure in the taps here. The shower is okay actually, but that's mostly because it comes downstream. The sinks are, there's just no pressure there, especially in the hot water. And like, if you're flushing the toilet and you don't get it right the first time, you gotta wait 10 minutes. That alone justifies the new boiler. But what does it the most is that it's this older system that has a separate boiler and a separate water tank. And the water tank, the cylinder, hot water, cold water, takes up an entire room. So there's like a whole like that could have been an indoor storage, which currently this flat doesn't have. I have to put things, you know, under the bed or in the shelves or in a shed. So that would be fantastic if I could free up that entire room for storage that I can access right in here. That would be so good. So in fact, I could then put stuff that is currently in the shed in there and use that shed as like an actual space that can be used for like knitting machine studio. That doesn't require power even. That would be so good. So obviously, is it worth paying that amount for just the boiler? But yeah, but also like getting more water pressure, better space, and eco-friendly thermostat based heating. Yeah, it just stings. I'm not I'm just lucky that I can barely afford it. So to anyone else here who just went into their first ever home ownership, of maybe this resonates and you can be like, yeah, I feel that, because yeah, same. But now that I'm looking at the need for an air conditioning unit, otherwise I'm risking bringing in all sorts here, it's really gotta start publishing patterns again. That's what I'm looking at. So I am not, like, this is the kind of thing that I talked about in the last episode, like why I feel weird about asking for money, because I feel like you can only do it once, because now it's like, am I gonna be crying wolf every time I just have to be an adult and deal with these things, you know? So if you feel sorry for me, like, buy yourself a pattern, but also if you want a pattern, buy yourself a pattern. I don't want people to buy them for the wrong reasons. I think we're knitters and we enjoy knitting things, so that's the main thing at the end of the day. I most of all just wanted to thank you guys so much, more than words can say, for helping me out last time. That made a huge difference. It really took so much anxiety off my shoulders with the move. When I got the moving fees were quadrupled almost, and I'm just standing there and I have to pay it there and then before the movers drive off, or else. That was a huge relief to know that I already could, that I could do that. So thank you so much. That's the main thing that I want to say. I think I've said everything I need to say. It's actually really nice and quiet now, so I'm gonna go and make myself another cup of coffee, because I can do that now. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy your knitting, and hopefully it won't be too long till next time. And bye!